Please take them by the hand at this time. For those needing to pick up or purchase physical tickets, or if you need to pick up or purchase physical tickets, do so now at the ticket desk. We hope you enjoy your visit to the once
is the spellings of the mechanism, one of two historical railroad mechanisms we'll be using today. Now adults, even though we don't use this all too often, it's like a 3-point turn for your automobile. So we're going to leave out of our Grand Junction station on what we call the base leg. Now as we sit here departure-wise, waiting our departure for the Grand Junction station and to the Missionary Ridge Local, up and behind the station on the hill are 3 lines, that is railroad main lines, that were completed in 1954. The 1954 completion of the 1950 abandonment of the 3-mile stretch we'll be using today. Now at the time of the abandonment of 1954, that is before the museum was established, and no one could have imagined later on that the Southern Railway would donate this property, this abandoned 3-mile stretch, to the Tennessee Valley Railroad Museum.
Cab riders, yes sir, we got them.
So in a few moments we'll be rolling over a spring switch with the last coach, and it allows us to back the entire train, that is the locomotive and all of its passenger cars, being a passenger train, around the east leg, around the corner, that curve connecting section of rail all the way up to the top of the hill, stopping there at the rock wall. We'll roll over the spring switch, stop one more time, and pull directly down the west leg to the front side of Grand Junction Station, well underway to East Chattanooga. We're crossing over CSX lines, but originally that was the W&A. If you've heard the great locomotive chase where James Andrews and his raiders confiscate the wood-burning locomotive, the General, never making it across the Tennessee state line. 6 feet, almost 3 football fields long, mostly dug by hand. Get your cell phones out, hold that up to the window, see just how close the pedal walls are to your train. Named after Colonel James Whiteside, a notable investor and stockholder and leader in the Chattanooga community. Colonel James Whiteside gives the name to this cable, or this tunnel itself, Whiteside Tunnel. Here we go, ladies and gentlemen. Notice the dampness on the tunnel wall.
Oh my God. Oh wow. Oh my goodness. Oh my God. Bro. Oh my God.
Now imagine working from either side of the ridge. Once they meet,
I don't know if you can see it, but there's the wall right next to it, so. Oh my God. Oh my goodness.
This is meant to be a working rail yard, and we'll get into that. Our longer excursions will offer you scenic opportunities. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for riding with us today. We have a lot more to talk about, but first and foremost, as we come to a complete stop, please take your time down the steps or the ramp. You'll need to take a left if you want to see a 1916. And within a few years, it was removed from Macon and reinstalled in Cedartown, Georgia, just south of Rome, Georgia, Polk County. This turntable is about 80 feet long. It weighs about 80 tons and about 200 tons of steam locomotive. In the next few minutes, will be pulled on for the 80-ton turntable. So if you do your math correctly, let's go ahead and call it up of that bearing to be able to turn it by hand. And even when we're talking about a motorized table itself. This table was salvaged because it was delivered, again, as I said before, from Macon to Cedartown. All operations of the Central Georgia Railway are abandoned there, so too was the table. We acquire it and install here in the early 1980s. Let's get started talking about our 4501, ladies and gentlemen. The very first set of 182 282 MS Mikados. Let's talk about the numbers. Anytime you read about or view the description of any steam locomotive, you're going to see numbers. A prefix of registry of historic places on a moving object. Does that give you an understanding how important this locomotive is? Number 1 out of 182, and the rest were scratched. Mikado in Japanese means emperor or ruler, because Japanese railroads were actually ordering this American class steam locomotive. They would send those over, disassemble, send those over via boat to the Pacific and Japan, reassemble those in Japan, and use those for getting pulling power and freight service. Ladies and gentlemen, during World War II, obviously, you had the Allied powers and the Axis powers. Japan being Axis powers, the United States being one of the Allied powers, a little bit of tension there. So some people would not refer to this at that point in time as a Mikado. They would refer to it as a MacArthur. 282, but we have our other steam locomotive over there, 280. You can see 440, 210, 484. All of those represent the wheel arrangement on a steam locomotive, simply referring to the wheel arrangement. Ladies and gentlemen, 4501, built by the Baldwin Locomotive Company in Philadelphia, delivered to the Southern Railway in 1911. Cost a little more than $25,000 to build. Now, large railroad corporations like the Southern started to, and once it becomes available, introducing diesel power into their fleets, dieselizing their with locomotive-wise, their fleets and their railroads. And steam locomotives, sometimes and occasionally, if it was not scrapped, perhaps it was sold secondhand to a smaller operating railroad or short line operating railroad. Now, the locomotive perhaps 4501 survives because it was in fact sold to the K&T, the Kentucky and Tennessee, a mining operating railroad up in between Stearns, Kentucky and the Tennessee area, the mining company in the mountains, for about $23,000, originally bought for $8,000 in 1948, and then by the 1963 period, you have a situation where either smaller railroads are dieselizing their fleet, and this railroad was sold for $5,000 basically its value, and in fact, bought by one of the two founding members. And where the walkway is located, stay right there at the end of the I'm going to take you over the walkway.